Hey everyone, it's Michael and
Andrew
and
Ruben
from Bullion Now, bullionnow.com.au. This is where we embarrass ourselves. We're going to wheel out the video that some of the long-term viewers will know that we hinted at last year, where we did a silver price predictions. We certainly released the gold one, but the video that Andrew and I did back this time last year, for various reasons, didn't get released.
It's getting saved as a time capsule for this very moment, Michael.
Yeah, so we're going to wheel it out. We're going to discuss where we got it right, where we got it wrong, and maybe even hint at what we're possibly thinking next year, although we'll probably do a completely separate video on that. So, you ready?
Yep.
Let's do it. Hey everyone, it's Michael and
Andrew
from Bullion Now, bullionnow.com.au. So, a week or two ago, we did an expose on the price of gold for 2023. And I think we took a vote, and I think everyone agreed with me.
I don't know about that. Where's the poll, Ruben?
Where do you think it's going to go next year, mate? What are we looking at?
Well, I mean, basically where it is now, it's it's had a few months of running up. I think it's getting a little bit tired. I think it's going to put in a lower high here. What are we now? 23.70, I think.
So you think I would have looked that up before we started this, wouldn't you?
So I think it's a 23.70, and I think that it needs to get past 27 for it to, potentially get to 30. And if it breaks 30, then I could think it can go straight up to 50 from there. But that's well and far away. I would be expecting it to, get a bit tired here, put in hidden bearish divergence, which is where the RSI is kind of higher than its last point and the price is lower than its last, high.
Yep.
And pull back. And I'm looking for, if it's 23.70 now, I'd be looking somewhere around that 21.50 probably, to start. I personally wouldn't be buying here. I think it's not the worst time, but I'd be waiting for a little bit lower. So
where are you looking for its low point at this stage, do you think?
Yeah, around that $20 mark. 21
that low, you reckon?
21 would be where 21.50 would be where I'd start to buy, and if it kept going lower, I'd be happy to put some more in.
Yeah, so kind of that 21.50 is about. You reckon it'll start
that's the first point of where it might come to, and then we'll see what happens after that. I think it's pretty hard to judge from there. But
how long do you expect it to stay in that 21.50?
May
area?
Is probably where I'd be looking for it to have a bounce.
Okay.
Whether that bounce can get back above the high point where it puts in now. If it does do that, then be looking for that next target of 27, and then 30, and then beyond. But until that happens, it's still in a downtrend, really.
You reckon it may stay out till May, so you went too far out.
Well, I think I said 27 would be sort of the next target. I have to clear that to get to 30, and I think it got up to about 26, and then it chopped around for a while. So what are we at now? About 23.80. And
so
again, the next target,
I
think the next target would be to sort of chop around a little bit more, and then try again for the highs, and breaks 27, breaks 30, I'd be looking for 35 would be the target to sort of sell out on.
Yeah. What I find interesting, and I'm going slightly on a tangent here, is the fact that the price overall for the year hasn't moved that much. It was kind of in those 22s, 23s at the start of the year. We're kind of in those 23s, you could say 23s to 24s.
Between 20 to 30, it has just been up and down.
But the premiums, so when you're actually purchasing silver physical, the premiums have actually expanded quite a bit since, over this year. So where we were looking at, premiums of on a kilo bar of, I'm actually guessing now, I think was at the start of the year we're about $50 to $60. We're now looking at more that $80 to $90 on a 1 kilo silver bar over spot. So
I think you do actually bring up the possibility of a premium shift later on in the discussion.
So I think it's interesting that we haven't seen a lot of movement in the price itself overall, 5% sort of thing, but we've seen larger premium movements. You're talking that 21.50 coming up towards May. What do you see in the charts? What do you think moving towards the end of the year? So, kind of this time next year.
It's so hard to predict.
The further out you go, the murkier it gets.
As I said, I'd be expecting it to come down to that 20, 21, 22-ish level and then bounce. I don't know how high that bounce is going to go.
The bounce was pretty hard.
It was a good bounce, yeah. It could keep going up in that second half of the year. But I'd definitely be looking for a bounce back up to 23, 24, and then from there, I don't know
whether
it's going to go up or down there, continue the downtrend, or actually break the uptrend and start going higher.
Yeah, so that's kind of your fork in the road. is if it gets to 23.50 and stops, you're expecting it to come down.
Pretty
if
much.
it goes through the 23.50, you're now looking for that $27 mark US, and then potentially beyond.
Basically, for it to break its previous lower high point, its weekly kind of lower high point, and if it can break above that, then I'd be looking for an uptrend.
Yeah. So you were pretty accurate in that. Your time frame was out. But we didn't. I don't think we quite got to 27, but we almost got to 27.
I think it was 26.
Yeah. And then it didn't break through. So, which is what you said. If it doesn't break through, if it does break through, it'll go through 30. If it doesn't break through, it'll, kind of wander around here for a while, which is, I would say
we're still there.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty accurate call. Yeah, okay.
And then all those talks of 50 and beyond, 200, 1,000.
$1,000 an ounce. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? More from a touchy-feely perspective, if you like, or looking more at the environment that we're in. We're starting to see China coming out of the funk that it's been in for many, many months now. They seem to be steering away from their COVID zero policy, which, love it or hate it, that's something that they've had for too many months now. In the new year, we're going to see the uptick of the Chinese economy, subject to the breaking of the drought. I think that is still holding back their industry, the fact that they can't generate that hydroelectricity, which is very important to the Chinese manufacturers. I would say, if I'm being honest about it, I don't think China's actually moved out of its funk, as I called it there, this year. If anything, it's probably in a worse position than it was.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to leave this all to you because I have no idea.
Okay. So I think to a degree, I don't think the Chinese economy's come out. The drought's broken, which is what we expected, but I don't think the Chinese economy has come out yet, which is probably why I would explain when I was saying before that, you said if it didn't break 27, it'd kind of drift around and drift back down. That would be my explanation for why we haven't gone anywhere to a large degree, is because the major manufacturing economies still haven't got themselves going yet. They're still suffering. Right. They're still they can't get out of their own way to actually get that demand coming in.
Are they printing more money? I know the US,
Not yet.
The Fed have been tightening a lot, but some of the other countries have been printing, right? Like Japan and some other Asian countries. But
some of the others have, but at this stage, my understanding is China hasn't. But they're certainly looking into it. But they've got major issues in their property market. They've got major issues with their some of their manufacturing sides, and they've got major issues with their property development side. So they've really got to get those under control before they can start, doing anything else.
Yep.
So assuming the drought breaks in the new year, or moving into the first half of next year, I can actually see slightly different. I think we'll actually see the silver demand increase, and I think we'll see an increasing trend.
And apart from China, what
North America's starting to move. They've got their midterm elections out the way, so their industry is starting to pick up a little bit. Europe's still a basket case, and that's... I can't see that changing in the next 12 months. I think they are going to be a basket case for at least 12 months. Even if... And the big bear in the room, and I pardon the pun because we're talking about Russian energy, but the big elephant in the room, I suppose, is the proper term, is at the moment is energy and what Europe can do about it. But their troubles stem well and truly beyond energy. They've got a lot of issues over there, even down to
their electricity prices have gone through the roof, haven't they?
And they're not going to come back. They have just introduced a new... so the European Union introduced new taxation against any imports. They now have to have carbon credits. So it used to be that they could import steel and coal and things like that. And if it wasn't made in Europe, it didn't incur these carbon credits. So if it's made locally, it has to have these carbon credits. If it's made internationally, it didn't have to. Well, they've now made it so as of, I think it's the start of next year, steel and all these sort of products that are coming into Europe are now going to be taxed quite heavily because of the carbon or lack of carbon input. And so that is going to drive a lot of their energy and a lot of their manufacturing costs up even further. And we are still seeing that play out. So, and that's part of, it's a small part, it's not huge, but it's a part of China's funk, as I keep calling it, because they, at this stage, they don't have those kind of carbon credits to pump into the European market, so they're being penalised all around the world. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and look, I mean, at that stage, 12 months ago, we weren't so much talking about the Middle Eastern problems as well. I'm surprised at how little they've influenced the rest of the world at this point. We are seeing, I think, a preemptive strike, for want of a better term, on oil prices lately. The Saudi Arabians particularly and the Russians are trying to pull back the manufacture of oil to try and drive the price up, and it's actually having the opposite effect because people are now panicking because they're saying, well, hang on, we're moving into, if you guys are panicking and want to cut down production, obviously there's a reason, so we must be entering into this, no one wants to use the recession word, but we're moving more into this recessionary environment, so there's obviously going to be a glut of oil, so the price of oil is starting to come down, and we've seen that play out over the last month or so, or even couple of months, and I think we're going to see more of that. So you've not only got the China problem, you've got the European problem that's still there, you've now got the Middle East problem as well. So it's going to be interesting. We won't get on to predictions for 24 yet, but it's interesting to hear the comments we were making. They basically haven't changed over the whole 12 months. So I think Europe doesn't only have an energy problem. I think it's got major problems that are going to take a couple of years to sort out. So that is the one thing that is really heavily playing on industry around the world. So if that really, really does blow out seriously, that could pressure the price of silver. But I'm seeing...
Because it does follow the manufacturing index, right?
To a degree it does, because 60 to 70% of all silver is used in manufacturing, not in investment. So if you get a huge uptake in that manufacturing demand, it's only going to increase the price. And that's, I know I harp on about this, but that's something that we don't emphasise enough, is that unlike gold is almost exclusively an investment metal, so it's far more stable. We see that in the price over time. Goes up, only comes back a bit. Goes up, comes back a little bit. Goes up. Whereas we get this volatility, as we're seeing on the chart, even over the last 12 months, where I think the low point is something around the $20 US, and the high point is somewhere around about the $26-ish US, even just snapshotting the last 12 months. You know, that's a huge range to be moving into. You know, 30% plus or minus. Well, it's a 30% spread if you want. So to have that level of volatility would never occur in gold, but it does in silver, and it does frequently, and it's because it's tied to this manufacturing demand, because that's the vast majority of where silver goes. So until I still firmly believe that until manufacturing gets going properly, we're not going to see larger movements in the price of silver.
Before you hit play, when do you think manufacturing will start to gear up more? And
I got to be honest, I thought manufacturing would start going this year. You know, by mid next year, I thought if the Chinese can get themselves out of the drought, which did happen, it happened fairly early on in the new year. So their ability to generate energy massively improved. If the Europeans could get organised, and I thought they would get organised, I thought the Russia-Ukraine situation and all the flow-on effects from that would settle down, and even the impact of Brexit, it's still got echoes going through the economy in Europe. I would have thought those things would start settling down, and I never really... I mean, the Middle East is, and I don't mean this derogatorily, but it's always been a bit of a basket case. I didn't think it was going to kick off any harder than it was, and it obviously did. So I expected production to actually get going by mid-year, which is why, and I think I'll probably say it in a minute, but why I've been saying, you know, I actually think we're going to charge ahead with the silver price, and we never did. We're still waiting. Will it happen next year? I'm probably putting the moz on it going down, but I actually think that manufacturing will continue to struggle for next year, because I think we are. I don't know if we'll head into a recession as such, but I'm certainly, the indications are there that these interest rates have started to bite all around the world, and various countries are suffering to different degrees, but the populations are suffering far more.
But won't that affect more your higher risk stuff? So your NASDAQ, your stock markets. Whereas I think if those pull back, generally, when in a bull market, which I think we are in macroeconomics and in sort of every sort of asset class together, the NASDAQ's almost hitting new highs. I think a pullback in those would cause silver and gold to go up in a 1 to 2 month period, as it sort of does in a bull market.
Yeah, look, I agree with your conclusion. If that occurs, then we'd probably see it drive stronger, gold particularly. But I think we're in a bit of a false dawn. I know the NASDAQ and the other indices are hitting record highs or are very close to, but it's being driven by a very limited number of companies.
It's true.
The vast majority of companies, particularly if you move outside of the top 100 or the top 200, they are really starting to struggle.
The small caps are definitely struggling.
Yeah, you go small caps, you go to micro caps, those kind of levels, which is more, I would argue, is more of a reflection on the economy, because BHP doesn't deal with you and I. It deals with major organisations, governments, major manufacturings, that type of thing. Absolutely, eventually there's a trickle-down effect, but I think you see the earlier stages in the smaller businesses that, they don't get a contract with BHP for the maintenance of whatever, or they can't sell their product, or they can't source their resources that they need, and it tends to hit the lower end before it hits the upper end. And I think that's where we're at the moment, more along those sort of lines.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm actually starting to turn more positive on silver than I was even 2 weeks ago. And I think that was an early call. Yep. I can see an easing in the price in the new year. I don't think it'll last long if it does. I think...
So if it does ease, where would you be? Which month or of next year? Where
I'd be surprised
turning around and taking off.
I would like to see it subject to Europe. I would imagine that January, February would be a low point. If it eased, wasn't too far out.
No, pretty good.
And I think you're right. I think we've run pretty hard these last few weeks, because I think there's the recognition of what we've just talked about. I think it will take a breather over the Christmas New Year period, and the first part, even say the first quarter, so up to kind
towards
of March.
The end of the first quarter.
Yeah, I think we'll take a breather till then. It might ease a bit till then, but I'm looking for it to actually start playing out from there on in.
Yeah, I agree with that. Where do you think the dollar's?
I think the Australian dollar will weaken against the US dollar. I'm starting to have doubts, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm wrong.
Well, that would be bad for the silver market. Right?
It would,
not bad, but it would cause a drop in the price, right?
No, because if the Australian dollar becomes cheaper, it means that the price in local
Australian
terms,
dollars, yeah,
in local terms, it means the price of silver is going to go up. So from an Australian
generally,
investor,
that would bring the price of the silver in US dollars down.
It
doesn't always, but it generally
doesn't directly
right?
correlate, but it echoes. Yes,
yeah.
I'll agree with that statement. So it has. My concern is that the price of silver is going to go up in US dollar terms because the demand is going to increase. It's one of those times where the US dollar coming down doesn't correlate with the increase in demand there. I think we're going to see an increase in demand. I think we're going to see an increase in price, and I think at the moment, I think we're going to see a decreasing Australian dollar, which in local terms will drive the price of silver up even more. Because we are.
I think you're pretty right about that too. I mean, the dollar did drop and silver did go up there.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I was hinting at right at the start, where we've seen in Australian dollar terms, we've seen the price of silver quite, it has pushed quite high. It's now up around that $38 mark. So in Australian dollar terms, we're looking at breaching 40.
Yeah.
Although I don't actually think we'll do it. But yeah, we did see over the year that weakening Australian dollar, and that was fairly clear even at that stage that the US Fed was going to be far more aggressive in its increasing of interest rates than the Australian Reserve Bank was going to be, and that's how it played out.
Yep.
I think really the only thing I'm getting really wrong there is I expected that increasing demand of silver to drive the price up in US dollars, which didn't occur.
Nothing drastic.
No.
And same with the Aussie dollar. It didn't really tank down to new lows. It sort of
it tanked down to
pretty
new
low,
short-term lows.
It didn't have a massive spike down.
No, we didn't drop down to 48
crash.
or anything like that. And I have to be honest, in the back of my mind, that's actually what I was expecting, was to see us in the 50s.
Yeah.
In the early 50s even, not even the late 50s.
It was about 55 when that sort of March 2020 came, that COVID drop. I think it was about there, yeah.
Yeah. So I was expecting to see kind of that kind of range, and it didn't. It only dropped down into the early 60s.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it did come down, and it did have the effect that we expected it to. Such a commodity-based economy, if commodities do well, oil goes up, iron goes up, silver goes up, gold goes up, then that will actually positively reflect on the Australian dollar, because we are such a commodity-heavy country. And I still agree with that. And I think one of the reasons we're seeing the Australian dollar start to strengthen over the last week or two is down to the fact that actually iron's got is going again. There's recognition of that, and some of our other commodities, and we're also seeing that weakening in the US economy. So I think,
for sure,
yeah, I think we are starting to see this play out further down the track.
Yeah. And how does that reflect to you in the gold-silver ratio? Where do you think?
I can see it coming back. I think gold is not going to go to... I think gold will increase, but I don't think it will increase rapidly. I think people are becoming more comfortable.
Because it was at 95, I think, and it's come down to 75.
Yeah, we're at... right at this second, we are at 76.5. Near enough?
Yeah.
So 76.5 to 1. I think that will ease further back. I think we're going to see silver demand increase and gold demand not decrease, not fall off a cliff, but I don't think it's going to go up as much as the silver will. So I think we're going to see that ratio come back even into the mid-60s, mid to early 60s. I know we haven't talked about the gold price yet, but... we did see it ease, although I don't think it got down into the mid-60s.
You were right for that sort of end of December period. But yeah, then it's what are we at now? Mid-80s?
Oh, in the 80s, yeah. 80-something. Yeah, and we have seen... I'm a little at a disadvantage here because we haven't seen the gold price part of this, but I didn't expect gold to increase as much as it did in Australian dollar terms. And I'm probably like...
But you're expecting a weaker dollar, so of course it's going to fly in Australian dollars.
Yeah. I think you're probably right, actually.
I was thinking more of 70, it's 74, 75 now, 76 maybe, and then down to about 72, 73, somewhere there, 74 maybe, and then probably bounce up to 82.
Oh, you reckon?
And then just a short-term bounce before silver kicks off again. If that bull market does happen, March, April, May, and silver kicks off, then it would be outperforming gold, I would firmly imagine.
Yeah, I think it will. So,
but I think there's a bounce coming for gold, a short-term bounce, probably during that lull period, the Christmas, New Year's, and heading on after that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm certainly not saying... And obviously, I'm a bullion dealer, so why would I? I don't think gold is going to... I don't think it's going to lose its momentum. I just think that silver's going to run harder.
Yeah, I mean, it generally does in a bull market.
Yeah. And I think I think we're almost at that turning point now. I don't think we're quite there, but I think we're coming closer.
Yeah,
so
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Here you go. I was going to say we're pretty much saying the same things now we were a year ago. I think we're getting close, but we're definitely not there yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen the US. We've seen gold breach 2,000 US.
Yeah.
Again, and it seems to be holding this time.
Yeah. I'm bullish on gold.
Yeah. I certainly am more bullish now than I probably was back then.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm pretty positive. I'm getting... Every week goes by, I'm getting more positive on silver. Whereas even, like I said, 2-3 weeks ago...
Probably a time you should sell your silver.
Yeah, well, I think I said on the gold one, the one thing I can guarantee is that we'll look back in 12 months and we'll both be wrong. That's probably the only accurate statement. I'm more confident with silver than I was even when we did the gold review that fortnight ago, where I was still I was really on the fence with silver. I'm now becoming more comfortable with my silver investment now.
And more confident with the overall market.
Yeah, definitely. I think 2023 is going to be a good year.
Yep.
So overall, I don't think it was a bad year.
Definitely wasn't a bad year. Well, not for gold anyway, but
even for silver,
it's doing pretty good compared to a lot of other assets.
Yeah, we were still looking at the start of the year in US dollar terms. We were still looking at that $21, $22 a mark area, and at the end of the year, we're looking at that 23 to 24 kind of range. So even that is still a 10 to 15% increase over the year. It's nothing to sneeze at.
What is its average? Whereas gold is about 20%. Is that right? If you average out every year, it does about 20%. Maybe it's dropped down a little bit now.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit less than that. I don't know what it is for silver. Incredible. That would be hard to call because it's so incredibly volatile. But I think it's still been a good year. I think we need to take our crypto hats off and accept that a 10 to 15% return on the year is actually not a bad year.
That's pretty good for silver.
It's if you got 10 to 15% increase in your house price over the year, you'd be pretty happy. If you got 10 to 15% increase or interest on your bank account, you'd be pretty happy for the year. So it's been a good year for silver.
What was the open price? Can you bring that up, Rubes?
In USD or AUD?
1st of January, USD.
So really, I think a lot of that, having looked more accurately at day one of 2023 and the day today, we've really gone nowhere.
No, I think we're about break even.
Yeah. So, and that's because we saw a fairly sharp dip fairly early in January, then it drove up, and then it's kind of been tracking downwards ever since, down to back where we started.
Yep.
So it's not such a red hot return for silver over time if you take it purely from 1st of January to today, which is the early in December. We still haven't finished out the year, but it's certainly held its price. But I think ultimately we were both wrong. We got some parts of it right and some parts of it wrong.
I think you got the timing right for that sort of January, February, March drop. I was expecting it to go a little bit longer. Price targets weren't too bad, but we both expected to have a pretty good second half of the year, which
never
didn't
happened.
No.
So do we kick off for 2024 predictions, Rubes?
Or we've got some time coming up where we won't have any sales videos coming out, so I wonder if we do that as a separate video. We get your analysis for next year, knowing that it might be viewed again in 12 months.
Yeah, okay. Alrighty.